Mill tried to change my baby's name without telling me after she asked me to name the baby after her. I told her she couldn't see my child anymore. I'm about to have a baby girl in 5 weeks, and I'm so excited to hold her for the first time. It's such a special feeling to finally meet the little one you've been carrying for 40 weeks. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. But amid all this excitement, my mother-in-law, Mil, is causing some trouble by insisting that we name our baby after her, Susan. She's been bothering us about it ever since we found out we were having a girl. She claims it's a family tradition to name babies after grandparents, but that's not entirely true. My husband wasn't named after his grandfather, he was named after Susan's father, so it feels unfair and hypocritical to me. If it were a real tradition, I might consider it, but under these circumstances I don't want to go along with it. At first, when my mother-in-law started suggesting we name our baby Susan, I didn't think much of it. It was just a suggestion, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. We found out we were having a girl at my 5th month checkup, and we had a gender reveal party a couple of months later. Since then, my mother-in-law has been pushing the name Susan on me. She came over to our house a week after the gender reveal party when my husband wasn't home. She guessed it was a girl and started calling the baby Susan, saying things like "my little Susan." I was confused but didn't say anything. She kept mentioning it every time she visited, saying that my baby girl must be resting because she hadn't felt her move. She explained that it's a family tradition to name babies after grandparents, but it felt strange to me. I finally asked her directly why she kept calling my baby Susan. My husband didn't know either. She said it's because of her name and the tradition of naming babies after grandparents. I was surprised and didn't know how to respond. She could tell I wasn't happy about it but didn't seem to care. My relationship with my mother-in-law has never been good. From the time I got married to my husband, she's been difficult to deal with. My husband, who doesn't like family drama, suggested I keep my distance from her. I agreed because I didn't want to deal with her negativity. Thanks to my husband's support, my mother-in-law had no influence over me. But now that I'm pregnant, she's started interfering again. She visits frequently under the guise of checking on my health, but I know she has ulterior motives. This has been going on for over a month, and it's been really tough dealing with my pregnancy hormones. Yesterday, I finally confronted her. She came over in the afternoon when my husband wasn't home, which is another thing that annoys me because she always seems to show up when I'm trying to rest. I work from home, so I have some flexibility, but it's still tiring being in the 3rd trimester. When I heard her at the door, I debated ignoring her, but I didn't want to deal with the aftermath like last time when she got worried and called my husband, so I had to face her again. I answered the doorbell when my mother-in-law came over, but this time I was determined to stand up to her if she mentioned naming my baby Susan. I sat with her briefly and then went back to work because that was better than spending time with her. I was so annoyed that I almost wanted her to bring up the topic so I could confront her. As I was leaving for my workstation, she casually said, "Take care of my little Susan." That was my cue. I sat back down with her and asked if she was serious about naming the baby Susan. She said yes, citing tradition. I then calmly told her I didn't want to name my baby Susan and pointed out the hypocrisy in her argument by mentioning how my husband wasn't named after his grandfather. I also mentioned that if we were following tradition, I would name my daughter after my own mother. She was taken aback and couldn't come up with a response. Before she could say anything else, I made it clear that I wouldn't budge on this matter. Her reaction was priceless. She left in a hurry, muttering something under her breath. I felt relieved when she left and hoped she wouldn't show up again. When my husband got home in the evening, he asked if his mom had visited. I said yes, and he didn't say much. I asked him what was wrong, and he mentioned that his mom had called him and complained that I didn't agree to name our daughter Susan, and instead wanted to name her after my mom. He laughed it off, knowing how his mom can be. He mentioned that she claimed I had insulted her and told her to leave and never come back, which I wish I had said. He advised me to relax and ignore her manipulative behavior. I'm so grateful for my understanding husband. He knows how to handle his mom's antics, and I admire him for that. Luckily, he's not swayed by her attempts to cause issues between us, or else it could have caused problems in our marriage. Update. I'm thrilled to share that I'm holding my beautiful baby in my arms as I write this. She arrived a week ago, 2 weeks earlier than expected. She couldn't wait to meet Mama. After the confrontation with my Mil, I thought things would settle down, but I underestimated her. A few days later, my father-in-law called my husband to say that Susan was very upset. Because of our argument, my mother-in-law is upset and not taking care of herself. She's not eating well, not taking her medicine, and avoiding talking to people. She's upset because she thinks I said I'd ban her from seeing my daughter, but I never said that. My husband didn't want to stress me out during my pregnancy, so he didn't discuss these issues with me. Even though my husband supports me, I was angry about the false accusations. The next day, my husband went to talk to his mom. She pretended to cry and told him lies. To calm her down, he apologized on my behalf. She didn't want an apology, she wanted us to name our daughter after her. My husband said it was our decision, which led to arguments. She threatened to cut us off if we didn't do what she wanted. I was ready to accept that, but I couldn't be mean to my husband by saying that directly. A few days later, my husband brought up the idea of calling our baby Susan as a nickname, even though I had refused to name her that officially. I was surprised and didn't understand why he would suggest it when I clearly didn't want Susan's name anywhere near my daughter. I rejected the idea immediately, which made him frustrated. He insisted that we needed to compromise and suggested that we use Susan as a pet name at home while keeping her official name something else. I disagreed and said it wasn't going to happen. We got busy preparing for the baby's arrival and didn't discuss the naming issue further. My labor started soon after, and our focus shifted to welcoming our baby. Friends and family visited us, but Susan didn't show up. After a couple of days in the hospital, I was discharged. Yesterday, my husband brought up the topic again while we were enjoying time with our newborn. He asked if I was still sticking to my decision of not naming the baby after his mom. I didn't want to argue, so I asked him what he wanted. He suggested that his family could call the baby Susan while I could choose her official name. I ended up agreeing to let Susan and Phil call our baby by that name, but I made it clear that neither my husband nor I would use that name. Susan could call her what she wanted. My husband was satisfied with this arrangement. However, I'm not feeling great about it. Susan didn't even bother to visit her granddaughter, yet she expects us to name her after her. It feels unfair, but I agreed to avoid conflict with my husband, who has been supportive. Now I'm unsure how to go back on my agreement. Update: Susan went overboard to satisfy her ego. She visited us with banners and posters all saying "Welcome Baby Susan" and similar things. Everything she brought was either labeled Susan or had an S on it. My daughter's name starts with R, not S+. Everything was in Susan's favorite color, green. It felt excessive and self-centered. I don't want to seem petty, but it's clear she's obsessed with herself, her name, and her color preferences. The baby ended up dressed head to toe in green, which I didn't even know was possible for baby items. She didn't say anything to me or ask about my health. She gave me the cold shoulder, and I did the same. She kept calling my baby Susan excessively, likely just to annoy me. She was so over the top in showing her love that she disrupted my daughter's sleep schedule. I tried to subtly mention that it was nap time, but she ignored me. I wanted to take my baby from her, but my husband wasn't around, and I didn't want to start a new fight. She would have exaggerated the whole thing and made up a story. As soon as she left, I removed all the green clothes she had put on my baby, which was a small relief. In the last 3 months, my MIL has done many strange and annoying things. For example, she created a social media page for my baby named Baby Susan and posted pictures and videos. I know many parents do this nowadays, but I'm against it. The pressure of getting likes and comments subjects a baby to a superficial sense of beauty and popularity, and I don't want my daughter exposed to that. I don't even post pictures of her on my own account, except for the baby announcement. But Susan has no chill. She posts pictures of my daughter every single day. How does she get so many pictures? She visits us every other day and takes as many photos as she wants. We can't say no to her visits or her taking pictures. It annoys me to the core, but what can I do? How do I stop her from seeing her granddaughter when she's not directly causing trouble? It's frustrating. This is a very silly thing compared to what she has done now. My baby turned 3 months old 2 weeks ago, so we took her to our family church for her baptism. During the event, when the priest started the procedure, he called my daughter Susan. I was shocked. He was reading the name from a paper, which I realized was the form I filled out while registering for the service. I felt embarrassed, but I stopped him midway and said that my daughter's name was not Susan, and that I had not filled in Susan on the form, but her real name. Aniel tried to intervene, but I ignored her and continued to ask the priest about it. He exchanged looks with MIL and said that she had visited the church a few days back and claimed that the form I filled out had an error, so she filled out a new form where she changed my baby's name to Susan. I requested the priest to spell out my daughter's real name, which I had mentioned on the form. My MIL works for the church, doing some kind of bookkeeping work. She is on good terms with the priest and other members of the church. She used this access to replace the form I had filled out for the baptism service. This confrontation led to chaos. My husband intervened and asked me to calm down. He said that the name didn't matter much. I know it doesn't to that extent. The person getting baptized matters more than the name. But still, there are sentiments attached to it. The name on the baptism document matters to me, and how dare she pull such a petty thing behind my back? I might have acted immaturely, but I was done with her. She was making my life miserable. She had pushed all my buttons, and I wanted to cut her off from my daughter's life. After the ceremony, we had organized a lunch for close family and friends. Susan was also a part of it. I was in a terrible mood after the incident at the church. My parents and sister tried to cheer me up, That's the best thing about having a baby, they don't let you stay sad. Seeing their smile lightens up your deepest sorrow. I enjoyed it for a brief moment, but then Susan decided to spoil it. When all the other guests left and it was just our parents in the house, Susan brought up how I yelled at her in front of everyone in the church. She suddenly started sobbing. She had been cheerful until now. She's such an imposter. My parents said that it was our family matter and decided to leave. I'm glad they did because I didn't want them to be part of Susan's victim show. After they left, Susan became more vicious, blaming me for manipulating her son against her and many other things. I listened patiently, then took my daughter in my arms and went inside my room. While leaving, I just said, "Your son is a free and wise man, but if you want, you can take him and tuck him in your skirts or chain him to your wrist." She got so furious at this, but I ignored her and stormed inside my room, bolting it from the inside. Even from inside my room, I could hear her yelling at the top of her voice. Occasionally, I heard my husband's voice as well. This continued for more than an hour. When they were gone, my husband knocked on the bedroom door. I opened it, thinking he would be angry at me for creating a fuss in front of everyone in the church and for having a big mouth with his mom. But I was surprised at his gesture. He hugged me and said sorry. He said he shouldn't have pestered me to let them call our daughter Susan. She was our baby, and it should be our choice as to what we want her to be called. He said he had banned his mom from our house and from our daughter's life until we felt comfortable because she was creating trouble in our life. The first year of the baby's life is supposed to be the best period for the parents, and Susan was ruining that for us, he explained. He also made it clear that our baby would have just one name, which we have given her, and everyone should call her by that. I was shocked. I didn't see that coming. I asked him what made him say so and why he suddenly changed sides when he was the one asking me to calm down in the church and telling me that the name didn't matter during baptism. He said that after the ceremony he overheard his mom talking to his aunt about me, swearing to separate me from the baby. She was saying that she could go to any lengths to ensure her name was carried on in the next generation and would also babysit our daughter when I resumed work, eventually manipulating the baby against me. It was so evil of her, my husband said. He was waiting for all the guests to leave so he could confront his mom about this, but luckily she brought up the topic, making it easier for him. Obviously, she didn't like the confrontation because she was caught off guard. She called him a simp and other derogatory names, but he stood his ground and didn't let her enter our personal space. Even my father-in-law rebuked her for her manipulative tactics and asked her to stay away from us. My husband said that if he let her into our space, she would ruin all the important moments in our baby's life, and we couldn't let that happen. I couldn't believe he took such a strong step to protect our daughter and my interests. So his mom is temporarily banned from our lives until she mends her ways, which I highly doubt she will. Story 2. I came home early to surprise my wife and caught her red-handed with another man in our backyard. Here is my story. My wife and I were married for only a year and some months before we divorced. Bella and I met at a restaurant where I had gone to have dinner one evening. She was sitting at a table alone while waiting for her date, who never showed up. I thought of keeping her company. Though she wasn't in her best mood when we met, we had a nice conversation. After weeks of occasionally talking on Facebook, we had our first date, and everything from there was happily ever after. We married after a year of dating, and I earnestly believed Bella would be the last woman I would date. I was tired of going through the cycle of talking with different women who would cheat on me. We were almost like the perfect couple, and there was absolutely nothing wrong in our relationship. We treated each other with love and respected each other. Bella and I were both hardworking, and I loved her because she was career-focused and did everything she could to earn more. Unlike Bella, who was a full-time remote worker, I only stayed home on my days off and barely took days off because something always came up at work. My work demanded that I travel from place to work for our clients. Even with my busy schedule, I did my best to spend time with Bella. I had big plans for us, believing we could build a beautiful future together with her support. Even though my busy schedule often kept me away from Bella, I made sure to show my love by buying her gifts, sending flowers, and taking her out for dinners and vacations whenever I could. I didn't wait for special occasions to make her feel special. Bella, in turn, knew how to make me feel loved and appreciated. Once, after returning from a week of work in another state, Bella surprised me with a massage session and the latest Jordan sneakers. She also cooked special meals, arranged romantic dinners at home, and did other thoughtful things. Because of Bella, I always looked forward to coming home. But one day I decided to surprise her by coming home without letting her know in advance. Usually I would inform Bella before returning from a trip so she could prepare. But this time, I wanted it to be a spontaneous surprise. Unfortunately, it turned into a shocking revelation for me instead. When I arrived home, I parked in the driveway as usual and walked inside with the things I bought. Right away, I noticed Bella seemed flustered and sweaty, but she had been doing hard work. She was also only half dressed, which made me curious. When I asked her what was going on, she said she was surprised to see me and blamed her state on the summer heat. I found her explanation suspicious, but I almost believed her because I didn't think she would bring someone else into our house. While we were talking about my trip and why I came home early, I heard the backyard sensor go off. I wanted to check the security cameras to see what was happening, but Bella tried to stop me. She said it was probably nothing and that I shouldn't worry because the sensor had gone off a few times already that day. Bella's behavior was strange because she had never objected to me checking the security cameras before. When she tried to stop me, it made me suspicious. Despite her protests, I decided to look at the cameras and saw our dogs attacking a man in the backyard. Bella acted surprised and claimed the man had broken in, but something felt off. I suggested calling the police, but Bella objected, saying we would be responsible for the dog's actions if we involved the police. This made me angry, so I called the police anyway and reported the trespassing. Shortly after, the police arrived. I called the dogs off him, and Bella's lover came out from where he had hidden himself. He had gotten hurt, and he told the police that our dogs attacked him. I explained to the police that he had trespassed on our property, which led to the attack. Bella's lover then shouted out that he had come to see Bella and had spent the previous night with her. It turned out that Bella was having an affair with him, and they had met through her book club. When he revealed this, Bella was shocked. She tried to quiet him down, but he continued yelling, saying he didn't want to be charged with trespassing since Bella had invited him over. That wasn't all. He and Bella had been having an affair for a while, and this wasn't the first time he had stayed overnight. After Bella's affair was exposed, she felt embarrassed as our curious neighbors had gathered to listen. I was devastated to discover that the woman I thought I'd spend my life with was cheating on me in our own home. After the police left, I couldn't contain my anger. I threw Bella's belongings out of the house and burned many of the things I had bought for her. The neighbors witnessed this public display of my hurt and anger. I even got rid of our wedding portrait and anything else that reminded me of our marriage. Bella kept trying to explain herself, but I knew they were just excuses and lies. I didn't want to hear any more and continued to remove her things from our home. Eventually, she had to call her younger sister to pick her up. I left the house to clear my mind and stayed at my best friend's place. After gathering myself, I reached out to a divorce lawyer to start the process of ending our marriage. I'm truly sorry you had to go through such a painful experience. Betrayal can leave deep wounds that take a long time to heal. It's understandable that you struggle to trust and open up to new relationships after what happened. It's important to give yourself the time and space you need to heal properly. Focusing on your work and personal growth can be a positive way to channel your energy and rebuild your confidence. Taking care of yourself emotionally and mentally is crucial during this time. It's okay to take things slow and prioritize your healing journey. With time and self-care, you may find it easier to trust and love again in the future.